you should not be, you know, like on the ground, not able to meet with friends, not able to leave the house, not able to be a mother. Like you should not be down for the count for days for your cycle. That is not, that is not what was intended. And
Yeah.
I talk about this like biblically, like in the Bible, we have pain with childbirth. I've never read the Bible saying like you're supposed to have horrible pain each cycle. Like it's not
Right.
meant to
Cool.
be demonized. We're taught to think it's this awful thing and PMS and horrible cramps and you're in your bed and you're just eating chocolate, and it's almost like we make fun of it as women. And it's like,
Yeah.
why don't we embrace that it should be pretty good?
Welcome to Take Back My Brain with Laurie Hammer, where real healing starts in the brain. I'm Laurie, a functional nutritionist and mom who's walked the path from anxiety and burnout to clarity and calm. Each week, we're going to dive into brain-based tools like amino acid therapy, gut health, fasting, and faith to help you reclaim your energy, emotions, and sense of self. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Laurie Hammer, and today we're gonna talk about perimenopause, and it's gonna be really fun. So I know all of you out there, you know somebody who's perimenopausal, or you are menopausal. So perimenopausal, going into that menopause stage, I am one of those as well. So I cannot wait to dive into this topic with Dr. Jen Pfleghaar. She is a board certified physician in emergency and integrative medicine. So she's had her own journey through all of these things with autoimmune disease and so much more, but she is a powerhouse in this world. And I just heard that she's a crazy chicken lady. So, welcome to the podcast, Jen.
Thank you so much, Lori. Yeah, Lori and I shared a little moment off air, and I told her I was a few minutes late because I accidentally ran over one of my chickens, and it was just very traumatic for me. And yeah, so this is why this is good because I'm in perimenopause too. So this is the stress that comes in, and yeah, I wasn't that calm. I was telling Lori that I like have been convicted to not swear at all. And I swore more in the past 10 minutes than I have in the past year. So yeah, it was not fun. But we are going to use some of that chicken, maybe the chicken legs and the breast. So yeah, but it is the new mini farm life in Tennessee. It is a different kind of emotion. So
It totally is. I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen.
well, yeah. And people are easier. Like, give me a perimenopausal woman, with anxiety and on the verge of breakdown, and I would do that any day over dealing with, a hurt chicken or something. So definitely I'm a little out of my comfort zone, but that's what we should do. Anyway, but we will talk today about women listening with hormone problems, how to get out of your comfort zone and find some healings.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's dive into that. So, I think we should start off with defining perimenopause because I think there's some misunderstandings as to what exactly that is.
Yes. And this term is not that it's new, it's been out there, but it's getting more traction and we're talking about it more because this is the population of women that are often neglected or ignored. And even really since the Women's Health Initiative, menopausal women have been not gotten good care. So now perimenopause, I feel like this is happening in women and I'm seeing it in my clinic. Younger and younger, they're getting symptoms of perimenopause. And also it seems to be lasting longer and we'll talk about why. And we think of perimenopause as this time before menopause, where menopause, the definition is a year without a menstrual cycle, a full year. The ovaries are shut down. There's no more eggs. There's no more estradiol being pulsed out. Progesterone has declined. And sometimes women will go through the menopausal change easier because they're still making estrogen from fat adipose tissues and different things. But most of the time we do get symptoms. Now, perimenopause can be 5 years, 10 years. And it's really when you start having these symptoms of the declining progesterone and then the erratic estradiol. And then some women also have declining testosterone where other women continue to produce testosterone well into menopause. So it's different for each woman. And I like to kind of explain it like it's like heating different ovens. If you go to your mother's house versus your in-laws versus your oven and you hit preheat, well, it might take 15 minutes for one oven and a half an hour for another. You never know. So you never know what you're going to get. And we can't be treating women in this space like the same oven. It has to be personalized. We are all different. And when you go to a conventional medicine doctor, or if you even talk about it with your OB-GYN, they just don't get it. My patients have told me so many times it's basically like just a protocol. First of all, they say we're not checking hormones because it doesn't matter. And well, yes, and I think that is so horrible. And we see this in the thyroid space too. Like, we're
Yeah.
just checking a TSH. And it's like, cool, not all the information.
Yeah.
And then they are put on hormonal birth control to regulate their period, and then they're put on an antidepressant. It's literally like the automatic response to a woman in perimenopause. And none of those things are going to benefit them at all. They actually feel worse, more crazy. They are
Mhm.
getting more toxic metabolites. So it's really awful. And it's a lot of gaslighting too. And the symptoms of perimenopause can also differ a lot for many different women. It could be weight gain, it could be poor sleep, it could be shorter cycles, it can be anxiety, it could be depression. A lot of women just don't feel like themselves anymore. I hear that a lot. So it's a wide range, but also like a good root cause that we can work with.
Yeah, for sure. I want to dive back just a little bit because you were saying, women get put on hormones and then they get put on, like an SSRI or something like that,
Yeah.
and, birth control or whatever. All of our teens are getting the same treatment.
Yeah. Yep. So if you're listening,
I'm floored by all of that.
yeah, and if you're listening out there and you have younger kids and teenagers like I do, a teen, it's so important to teach them about the cycle and what's normal and what's not. And I always say like God gave us symptoms as a gift. We shouldn't be thinking of symptoms as like leading to a diagnosis. They're a gift that something's wrong. Our bodies want to heal and be in homeostasis. So if we're having bad cramps, if we're having really heavy cycles, if we're having PMS symptoms and anxiety when we're younger, those are symptoms of usually an estrogen dominant state where we have estrogen dominance because we're not detoxifying through our liver or through our gut, or we have like low progesterone because of
Mhm.
stress or cortisol or bad diet or metabolic problems. We're not metabolically flexible. We're having high insulin. So all of these things are symptoms that, we have this imbalance of progesterone and estrogen. So it's pretty similar to perimenopause where we have this big difference in estrogen progesterone and we're having an estrogen dominant picture. And,
Mhm.
we're having those shorter cycles. We're not metabolizing estrogen as well. We're even more stressed out and our progesterone is on the decline. So we're seeing these symptoms resurge. But to your point, when these younger girls come in with PMS symptoms, I mean, I was one of them. I
Oh, me too.
had, yeah, and I am so angry about it, but I know that it is being used for good now
Yeah.
because I can talk about it. Like, I am not happy that I was on birth control to regulate my period as a kid in high school. Very inappropriate, and I think that led to overgrowth of candida and gut
Oh,
health and constipation, right? And
yes.
yeah, and even it took me a while to wake up, even going through conventional medicine and medical school and emergency medicine. It really took me a long time to kind of get rid of the medicine solves all mentality and
Yes.
going back to root cause and going back to God's design of our body. So it's great to be on the other side, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Right. And I think when we start our young girls out like that, I mean, it's taken me years to feel good hormonally. After
Yeah.
being on birth control for quite a long time. And that was because my periods were so bad. I had PCOS and my acne was so bad. And then, you do 2 rounds of Accutane, so you do a ton of antibiotics.
Yeah.
And even I kind of woke up early to a lot of things, and I was about 23, and so started changing some things then, but my hormones were still I mean, it's taken a long time. They've been like this, up and down, even all these years. Now they feel pretty stable, and I'm, almost menopausal, which is kind of crazy and exciting at the same time. So I don't feel like I have very many symptoms. But yeah, it just breaks my heart because I feel like this whole hormonal journey that we have the privilege to be on. We've created it into something that God never intended. And even my own daughter, she'd be like, I just wish I never got my period. And we've
Oh,
we've worked on, her cramps and all those kind of things. So she knows if she doesn't do, her diet isn't really great or she doesn't take a few certain supplements that sometimes she gets cramps. Like she just had cramps the other day but it had been like 6 months since she had any.
that's great.
Um, Society, I think, teaches us that we're just supposed to despise this hormone journey,
Yes.
instead of embrace it and figure out what's going on and, to live a life that's hormonally friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really think that you should be at the point, and if you're not and you're listening and you're like, "I'm not at that point," then there are things you can work on,
Yeah.
and I discuss this, like, in my book, like, how to regulate those hormones naturally and how to get them more steady because we should, like yes, I get a little more emotional before I start my cycle. I might have, like, hour of like where it feels like I just did too many deadlifts in my back. And
Yes.
then I know, oh, I'm getting my period. You should not be, like on the ground, not able to meet with friends, not able to leave the house, not able to be a mother. Like you should not be down for the count for days for your cycle. That is not, that is not what was intended. And
Yeah.
I talk about this like biblically, like in the Bible, yes, we have pain with childbirth. I've never read the Bible saying like you're supposed to have horrible pain each cycle. Like it's not
Right.
meant to
Cool.
be demonized. Yeah, like you were saying, like we're taught to think it's this awful thing and PMS and horrible cramps and you're in your bed and you're just eating chocolate, and it's almost like we make fun of it as women. And it's like,
Yeah.
why don't we embrace that it should be pretty good, and if it's not, then we need to go back and see what's going on because say our liver isn't functioning properly. It's
Mhm.
not just estrogen metabolism. There's so many other things like how we metabolize just mold in our daily life. There's
Mhm.
different things that run through there that if we're having these symptoms, there's other things that can be affected. If our gut health isn't operating perfectly
Right.
and we're not getting rid of, toxins, we're recycling estrogen and toxins in there, and our gut health isn't properly functioning, well, that's going to lead to sickness and cancers and autoimmune disease. So we need to actually like, wow, like pay attention. Like my
Yeah.
daughter or me, we're having problems during our cycle or with our cycle. Wow, this is a warning sign. I need to take this seriously. I shouldn't just take Midol. We're all programmed. Midol makes it all go away, right? Like
Right.
that was the programming when I was growing up, and we just accepted. And I see this a lot in medicine. Like women are just not really treated well or properly.
Mhm.
So this is time to take that back.
It is time to take it back. So we're talking about body signals. So if you're having cramps, you're having excessive pain, all those kind of things. But what else can they look for? Like I know there's lab markers and there's also other things. So when you go to the doctor, they take your blood work and they're like, "Oh, you're fine." What can you, taking charge of your own health look at even if your doctor says everything's fine?
Yeah. Well, you can come in and ask them for a full panel of hormones and they might say, "Oh, that's not doesn't matter. That's not going to show anything." But you can be like, "No, I want to check it out. I want to see what's going on with my progesterone and estrogen ratios. I want to see, my DHEA. I want to see all these things and my thyroid, how they're operating." So you can ask for blood work from your doctor. And I've had people do that just follow me on Instagram that aren't my patients.
Mhm.
And you could check for a full thyroid panel, a TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, thyroid antibodies. You could ask for full hormones where you're checking pregnenolone, progesterone, DHEA, estradiol, testosterone with free testosterone. You could check a DHT to see if you're converting your testosterone to like kind of like a stronger testosterone DHT, where that's where you're probably seeing chin hair and more acne stuff. So
Yeah.
you could ask for those. You could check for an FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, if you think you're in menopause already or your cycles are very irregular. But I like to have my patients check the blood work on day 19 to 21 of their cycle because we are looking for progesterone being at its peak. And if it's really tanked there, then we know that sometimes either supporting progesterone with something like Vitex or Chase Tree Berry, or
Mm,
giving progesterone during that second half of that luteal phase. Sometimes we're at that point. We know progesterone is just going down to
mhm,
bottom. So if we support with bioidentical hormones, that can be really helpful, especially if given orally in perimenopause. That how it's broken down in our body can help us sleep a little bit with how the metabolite works. So that's really helpful in perimenopausal women. That if progesterone, we know it's declining, and if it gets to that point, we want to supplement with that. We want to even things out. We want to make this time in your life enjoyable. Another test that you could ask your doctor for if they're integrative or functional is a saliva cortisol test. And
mhm.
that is a 4 point saliva test where you check your cortisol 4 times throughout the day. And it's very helpful to see what's going on with stress levels, maybe where you're stressed at. And we can kind of pinpoint that and pivot from that because stress is going to drive a lot of things, estradiol down even further and progesterone down even further. So cortisol also sex drive.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I see this trend with, don't get me started on pellets, or we could get started on it. Okay.
Okay, too.
We are there, these med spas where they have no training except for a
None.
weekend training from the pellet company that they pay for that, right? And they pump these perimenopausal women full of testosterone and they feel amazing for 6 months because it's a controlled drug. It's addictive. And yes, if I just shot myself up with testosterone, I'd be like, let's go. But first of all, if we have high testosterone with low estradiol, that is going to increase a woman's hardening of the arteries, and that's a concern, right? We don't
Right.
want super therapeutic
No.
testosterone. And then you're gonna crash. You're gonna crash. Your body is going to be like, because you're just gonna want more and more, and it's a problem,
Mhm.
and you're gonna see more side effects. A lot of the times, these women will be like, I'm sure it's testosterone. We'll check a saliva or check his saliva, testosterone, we'll check his or blood serum, free testosterone, we'll check all of it, right? And I'm like, testosterone's not your problem. That's not why you don't want to be intimate with your husband. It's
Right.
probably stress. It's probably cortisol. And cortisol is, I mean, as you know, and you know what you would work with women. I mean, cortisol and stress is harder. It's harder.
Yes.
It's not a
It
pill.
is.
You can't rub it on. You actually have to work at it.
Yep.
And sometimes that work is hard. Sometimes that works hard. So yeah, I think that that is something that the saliva cortisol is a lab that is really telling when it comes to a woman. I have a few women that will check their cortisol and it's pretty good, except that afternoon cortisol. And that is right around where their kids get home from school, their
Mhm.
husband's coming home,
Yeah.
they're cooking, they're going to soccer practice. So, breath work practices, L-theanine. Sometimes I'll just have them take an L-theanine right before like that whirlwind comes home. I've done it before where I'm like,
Me too.
let's do it. So, yeah, so it's very interesting because we can pinpoint, when we have lab testing, it can be really helpful when we're trying to figure out like where it's coming from. Now, some women like for me my trigger is when I run over a chicken, right? I saw that in real time. So, you can so we're going to have more strategies because yeah, so we can work through that. I'm like, okay, I'm not parking the car for a few minutes while we get the eggs. We're gonna walk down because right when we park, the chickens are gonna come in. We're gonna get a deck box at the end of our driveway for deliveries, so that will minimize the cars coming up and down. Like we need to work this through, right? Identify that trigger, so then you don't have it. So if you have any triggers, make sure that you're identifying them and you are working with it because we have enough like fight or flight around us like 24/7. So we need to try to lessen that. And especially for women in this age group, there is no lack of stress and cortisol. So we really need to identify those things and work on them for our hormone health.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about cortisol and stuff. Most people start thinking about weight issues, especially in
Oh yeah.
perimenopause. What how do we manage our weight going through perimenopause? What do you teach?
Yeah. So definitely balance the hormones. We want to balance, excess estradiol, estrogens, the toxic metabolites. If they're not getting out, we need to optimize liver and gut health. We need to also, see what progesterone is doing and balance that out. If we have modifiable stressors, as I spoke about, that would be good. One stressor that we don't always think about is our blood sugar.
Oh,
And it can kind of, it goes both ways, because if we're very stressed all the time, that's going to affect our blood sugar. But also, if we are eating horrible and lots of highly processed food, not enough protein and fat, that can actually drive cortisol up and stress the body out. So I really love women to wear a continuous glucose monitor, and
okay.
maybe also like do a semi elimination diet with that, eliminate some things. Sometimes just doing a week of carnivore and really dialing in on, is it food that is causing the bloating, the stress, the mood swings? That's really helpful. And when I have women wear a continuous glucose monitor, I have them wear it an entire cycle
Okay.
because, yeah, it's really helpful because we are more insulin sensitive in our follicular phase, that first
Yeah.
half of our cycle.
Well,
And
that's
that
good
is,
to know. I don't think most people know that.
yeah, yeah, and this has to do with estradiol. And then the second half of the cycle with progesterone, we are more insulin resistant. And this is also when we crave the bad food, and our body demands more calories too there, but it has to be appropriate calories. So really like looking at like the whole cycle is good. Another thing mistake that I see perimenopausal women doing, and women in general if they're menstruating, is fasting or extended fasting during the wrong part of their cycle. So during that second half, that luteal phase of the cycle, they're like adding on stress and
Mhm.
driving cortisol up and driving progesterone down, because that is the time of your cycle when your body is preparing to home a baby
Right.
and for implantation. And it goes against nature trying to be stressed, do intense workouts, do fasting during that time. You should be nourishing your body. You should be relaxing. This is where I tell women, like, don't like be strict here. Don't be super
Mhm.
restrictive. It's gonna backfire. And my patients, when I work with them, I tell them, I'm like, I want you to do some fasting, but during that first half of your cycle, that
Yeah.
follicular phase. So maybe a couple days in, like day 4 or 5, after you're done bleeding, then, do a 24-hour fast just for a gut reset. Do a 36-hour fast to increase your weight loss and fat loss, and that can be really helpful. Or just extend your fast to 16 hours a few times, but this
Yeah.
is when you can do it and you're going to be successful. If you try to do this during your luteal phase, you're going to get frustrated. You might binge eat after starving yourself all day. I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're like fighting biology. And that is a big thing that I've seen that will actually drive up weight. Like these women that are fasting like hardcore throughout their cycle, or doing the HIIT workouts, high intensity interval training. If they're doing that during that luteal phase, they'll gain weight.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and I don't know if you've seen this, but, I've had patients that training for half marathons, marathons, and
Mhm.
they actually gain weight and their
Yep.
hormones crash. So I don't know, every time I see someone on Facebook and, because Facebook Instagram, I have pretty dialed into what I wanna see, but Facebook is a free for all, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Here's another woman training for a marathon," and I know they're in perimenopause, and I'm just like, "Don't
Mhm.
do it.
Don't do
Don't
it.
don't do it."
Let's see. 'Cause I'm 52 now, so it would have been I was like 43, I think, 42, somewhere in there. And I started working in a chiropractor's office. I moved my practice in there for a little bit, and they were big CrossFitters. And so like part of the, team building is, you come to CrossFit. And so I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I'm decently fit and I feel like I had a good energy and stuff. Oh my gosh, I gained 10 pounds in a month.
Oh, no.
Literally gained 10 pounds in a month. Like, and I don't gain weight. I stay the same weight pretty much all the time. And I was in pain all the time. It wasn't just like my muscles were sore. Like I couldn't sleep. My body hurt so bad. And
Wow.
I missed like 2 periods in a row. And I'm like, okay, I cannot do CrossFit. Like I thought it
No.
would get better, but I wasn't sleeping. I gained weight.
Wow.
Like my body said, please don't do that.
Yeah, CrossFit's it's a little like I've never done it, like almost cultish a little. I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like like Orange Theory's like that too. Like I
It
Yeah,
was like
like
the worst 4 months of my life, I'll just be honest.
oh, that is crazy. And I mean, that's a good testimony on like why that is not good. Now, maybe if you just busted that out during your follicular phase, like
Yeah,
maybe
maybe.
that would be fine.
I don't even
But
know, it was like it was just bad the whole time, so I don't know.
yeah, I mean, that's really rough. And like I think, yeah, obviously listen to your body. And I love women lifting, but like CrossFit is more like high intensity interval
Yeah,
training. Like,
it was too
yeah,
much for my body, which is why I brought it up because
yeah.
and since then I'm like, "Okay, this is not what we do," and, figured out a good rhythm of exercise as I'm, transitioning into, menopause and stuff, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so talking about that, like with cycle syncing, with working out, so we kind of alluded to this. So follicular phase, this is where you want to sprint. Like my kids probably know from my workouts whenever I'm in follicular phase because I'm sprinting, I'm
Mhm.
working on that VO2 max, which is endurance, and that is a marker of longevity. We want that cardiac output. Then lift really heavy weights, hit it hard, and then if you want to do high intensity interval training, I do sprints instead with that, but that is when you want to hit it hard, go for your PRs. I mean, if you are training for something, do it then. And
Mhm.
then the luteal phase, I mean, we know they've studied women soccer players, in England, and they had more higher incidence of ACL tears during their luteal phase. We
No.
know because of the different hormones, yeah, like relaxin and progesterone, like our ligaments are a little bit more lax. So we don't want to do high intensity interval training, hit workouts because of the cortisol factor. We
Mhm.
don't want to go for PRs or push ourselves here because you're more at risk for injury. It's not
Yeah.
worth it. And we want to do more restorative things like stretching, mobility, walk at an incline. There was a study that came out that if you do 30 minutes, 3 miles per hour at an incline of 12, that is going to burn fat, but not expend a lot of energy. So I think that is really good to do in luteal phase. Get out in nature and walk, do your walks then and still lift weights though. But lift to fatigue, but lower weights. Cause I can feel it like in my shoulder because I have an injury that just comes and goes. If I push it and certain exercises in my luteal phase, like I'm just like, that was not intelligent. Like I know better. So you just need to back off a little bit, lift to fatigue, but lower amount of weight, still lifting heavy, but you're
Mhm.
not like, I'm going to go up 5 pounds in my luteal phase. It's not worth it. Just wait till your follicular phase and listen to your body. I mean, there is a caveat, like some women that are more androgenic, I've seen that they can really push through their luteal phase. And these are women that like don't have hips, are very straight. It's like that more androgenic type women that are out there that, are just they look more like boys, right? Like they don't
Mhm.
have those curves and stuff. So I have seen like with my patients that maybe it doesn't affect them as much. And they tend to like online, I see this trend of them poking fun at women that are doing more cycle syncing. And I'm like, you just don't get it. Like
No. Yeah.
you don't get it.
It's real. It's real. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, let's not make fun of each other as women. Let's like embrace each other instead. And yeah, so I also just like women to give themselves grace during that luteal phase and like talk about it. Like I'll say, to my husband and I have 3 boys and I'm like, yeah, like we're luteal phase, we're going to be more emotional and my
Right.
daughter and I are obviously on the same cycle because we live in the same house. So, it's real fun to have us together, but yeah, we need to start talking about it, normalizing
Mhm.
it, and it's totally okay and it's kind of fun actually. So,
Yeah, it is. So we're doing the perimenopausal, but then there's women like me who are like, "Okay, I got my period. Don't get my period for 4 months."
yeah.
Do we
Yeah.
really even have a follicular and luteal phase, and how do we navigate those things?
Yeah. Well, so this is where estradiol, it's fluctuating. So you can have like a high surge. And this is where it gets confusing because also if some women are kind of regular more during that end of perimenopause, and then they'll just have a horrible cycle. And they're
Yeah.
like, that was horrible. I was doing so well. Or it happens a lot after I start them on progesterone and they're just like, oh. So what we do if it's been like 4 months, this is when I sometimes, talk to the women about, well, we might go continuous progesterone or we might do like 100 milligrams and then 200 milligrams. Because this isn't an exact science, we don't have randomized control studies about how to deal with that last year before. We just do things safely. We're still checking hormones and see what's going on. We can check an FSH. A lot of the times, what starts coming up during those last, like that last year or two of perimenopause, is that we really start seeing saggy skin. We start having vaginal complaints like dryness. Sex is not the same. So this is where I like to prescribe estriol. So
Mhm.
estriol is a weaker estrogen, and it can be really helpful with those two things. The thing about prescribing estradiol during perimenopause, and this is I'm seeing it with just practitioners that haven't gone through hormone courses, you can tell,
Yeah.
is, well, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's kind of scary. So, if we have this high surge of estradiol and you're on an estradiol patch in perimenopause, then we're going to have a super therapeutic estradiol and we're not having protection of that progesterone. So, what do I mean by protection of progesterone? That protects our breast cells from cancer and our endometrium from cancer. So, what is the first thing is do no harm. We want to be very conservative. Bioidentical hormones, they are amazing. They change women's lives, but we also have to make sure that we are doing it very intelligently. And this is where a nice estriol, when we're checking labs, can be helpful. I'll tell you about a story. I had a patient, very intelligent patient. She's like one of my most intelligent patients. So she listened to a podcast, and it was, I think, an FDN or something. A functional nutritionist was giving a podcast and was selling a cream that had 1 milligram of estradiol and 1 milligram of estriol in it, just sold online on the internet, not from a
Mhm.
compounding pharmacy, and was just said, oh, estrogen that helps keep the skin not sagging, and you just rub it all over your body. This patient bought some and put 4 pumps, like, at a time
Oh,
over her body. Yes, terrified. So,
wow.
was getting 4 milligrams. Now, I wouldn't have known this, but I was just doing a saliva cortisol on her because we were doing a low dose testosterone on her and progesterone, and she was in perimenopause. I get the labs back and I was like, this isn't just a normal surge. This isn't I've never seen this before. I'm like, what is going on? Her estradiol was high, her estriol was high, and her estrone was high because she was getting so much estrogens, it was going down the bad pathway to estrone. And I was terrified. And I'm like, and then she told me what had happened. And I'm like, okay, stop that completely. We're detoxifying you the best we can, but I
Right?
can't guarantee that you didn't do harm. And it's so hard because for listeners out there, it's the wild west right now with hormones. And
It is the Wild West, yeah.
yes, and unfortunately, I don't know if you agree with me. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better because it's trendy right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm just like, and I don't want to like diss people or talk bad about people. I'm trying to stay in my lane and just speak truth and not do harm. So, but it's the wild west. Sometimes
It
I'm on internet and I'm like, whoo, someone's gonna get hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, let's just be honest. So we've got hormone replacement therapy. If it's done correctly, great.
Yes.
And so many people aren't addressing the root cause issues why you have the hormone issues in the first place. But then let's go
Yes.
to like those GLP-1 medications.
Yeah.
Like if we
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
talk
yeah.
elephant in the room, those are
What's your standpoint on them? What do you think
they're
about
being
them?
misused. I see a lot of negativity. I think you can use them correctly. I don't think most of the time they are being used correctly. That's not the demographic that I'm seeing of people who've been on them. I'm like, whole lot
Yeah.
of issues going on. Whole lot of issues going
Are
on.
you seeing them, like, dosed really high for, like, quick
Too
weight
high.
loss?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
too
where are
high
you
for weight
seeing them
loss, too
prescribed
high for
from?
diabetes.
Are you seeing them prescribed mostly by conventional doctors or, like, med spa or just that one
Both.
influencer GLP-1 that people yeah,
Yeah,
what
I've
are you
I've been
seeing?
seeing them by both. So,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
so I've been using GLP-1 before the Kardashians did, for
Before it
about
was cool.
yeah, for like, gosh, probably like 6, 7 years, and from a compounding pharmacy, an FDA regulated compounding pharmacy, because we're seeing them, from China, research,
Yep.
peptide use only, like that is also the Wild West. So the best way to use a GLP-1 is to use a low dose and for
Mhm.
the short time is needed, and then also bring in other tools. Okay. So, what is the concern about GLP-1? Well, gastric motility can be decreased. And if we're using really high doses, that's when it becomes a problem. Lower doses, not so much. Also, if you are going on a GLP-1 and your gut motility sucks to begin with, you need to back it up and work on that first.
Yeah.
And it, as we know, like the vagus nerve, stress, a lot of that dysbiosis for gut health, we really got to work on that. So then another like a non-negotiable is my patient they need to eat protein, shoot for 120 to 150 grams a day, 30 grams each meal. Like I'm like, look it, if I'm going to put you on a GLP-1 correctly,
Yeah.
because we're not looking for losing 10 pounds in a week, we're doing it
Right.
slow. And
Right.
sometimes, yeah. And I'm like, if you have friends that are on a GLP-1 and they just aren't eating at all, like they're overdosed on it.
Yeah.
Like that's not the point. It should get rid of the food noise. It should correct some insulin resistance. Like that is why it calms down inflammation. So lift weights, eat protein, creatine. I like them on Pepti Strong, which is a plant derived peptide from the fava bean, 2.4 grams once a day. That will help retain muscle too.
Okay.
So we're looking at a body composition shift. If they don't mind more injections, you could put them on a growth hormone secretagogue like ipamorelin, CJC ipamorelin, ceramorelin. So they can do that 5 nights a week before bed on an empty stomach. And that will help drive like muscle creation too. So there's a lot of different tools in the toolbox for using GLP-1s correctly.
Mm.
Something that I've been doing with my patients is just if they go off of them and they're like, the food noise is coming back. And obviously we're working on why, like the root cause of
Sure.
that, because a lot of it is emotional, and habits. But I'm starting to just dose some of my women just during that luteal phase because that is when they have the food noise the most. That
Right.
is when they're more insulin
Right.
resistant. Yeah, and it's working really well, and I like it because it's giving them, like, their body a break, and then
Yep.
they're just doing a low dose during that luteal phase, and it's just helping getting them through while we're working on the other stuff, of course.
Right. Because that's the biggest thing. Is just I see so many people not working on why this is an issue to start with.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? I just saw it come up on, like, my email. I haven't looked into it, but I guess the government just made a new level of what is considered obesity. Like, they
Oh,
lowered the number, and my first thought was, like, they did that so more people would get approved by insurance to pay for GLP-1s by the pharmaceutical companies, which it's
yeah.
probably gonna bankrupt our health system,
Right.
and we're not working on anything preventatively or getting out high fructose corn syrup out of our diet, which is ruining everyone's livers. But anyway, just a little side note. If you guys want to go down, like I just can't. So it's very frustrating to see this stuff like in real time, the corruption of big pharma, especially like I feel like my medical education should have been free because like big pharma was such an influence on it. Like I want some of my money
Right.
back.
You
Like
want your money back. Yeah.
I do. I'm like, "Oh, you were just grooming me. You should have been paying me to
Mhm.
go." Like let's get it out. But anyway, we're working on that. I'm trying to, I'm like, "Hey, teach integrative medicine to medical schools," but
Right?
no one's busting down my door yet. So,
Well, we'll just keep praying that that'll happen.
yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll reach the audience that you're supposed to reach because there's people seeking so much information right now. It's fun. It's a fun time to be a practitioner because
Mhm.
people are they're waking up and they are seeking all this information. And I love your mission, Jen. So I love what you're
Well,
doing.
and to keep it positive, like I have doctors that follow me on Instagram,
Yep.
or I spoke at like a DO, like a regular conference in Nashville a couple weeks ago, and they are excited for this. A lot of them are just scared to speak out. They're scared to leave conventional medicine. So I try to mentor them. I try to point them in the right direction. Like so it's great to see when that this is a ripple effect and we just need doctors to keep on pursuing like real health for their patients. And I think we're just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, I do too. My goodness. I've loved this conversation, Jen. So
Yeah.
thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
speaking with me and my audience. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, so I would love you guys if you are hungry for more information, you could go to Dr. Jen Book, DRJEN book.com and check out the perimenopause reset and also going to have a course that is launched right now to go with it. So just a lot of information. I want to really just have a community of women and I want us to be strong in health and strong in faith.
Awesome. I love that so much. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. I know you're listening to this going, I know so and so needs this, or you yourself needed to hear this interview. And so if that is you, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this interview with somebody who needs this information. So we're all about empowering each other. And so this was a very empowering episode. So make sure you do that. I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to Take Back My Brain. If today's episode helped you connect with hope or direction, I want you to follow the show, leave us a review, and share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to start your own healing journey, explore our courses and our coaching programs at lauriehammer.com/store. So until next time, remember, you cannot medicate away a nutrient deficiency, and healing your brain isn't just possible, it's powerful.